Hello everyone. So today I wanted to give a little retrospective on the Witcher Netflix and talk about some big news that came up in the Witcher fandom a little while ago now, but I never really addressed or discussed prior to this video. This news is Liam Hemsworth taking over the role of Geralt in the Witcher Netflix. Now, if you follow my channel, you'll know how I feel about this show. I never really liked it or thought it resembled The Witcher, and for many of us familiar with the books and the sort of themes prevalent there, it was obvious that this show was not going to be a faithful adaptation, and it didn't turn out to be. There was issues with the showrunner from the very beginning, and I remember multiple promises she made, or at least statements she released and then went back on. I remember them basically ignoring the existence of the games, but then heavily having inspiration from it, and then sort of ignoring that they did. It was a very strange situation where they kept saying, oh, we just want to adapt the books, we're going to just do the book stuff, and then they would have this like armor that looked like it was ripped from the games, and then all this different stuff, and it was very confusing. And then there was the collaboration with CD Projekt Red, and it was just like, what do they want to do? And then they made the show, which, God, that was even more like, what do you mean you care about the books sort of thing. But I remember that they ignored a lot of the English adaptations of the books, you know, certain characters' names that they didn't use. And I remember it just got worse and worse in regards to taking liberties, and now the show just resembles something that can only be described as not The Witcher. I'd say it's Witcher fanfiction, but it's obvious to me that the creators of this show are not and never were fans of The Witcher. They just wanted to make their own show and use a popular IP to push it to audiences. I think in the past I've tried to be careful when discussing this show and how I feel about it, because in honesty, I didn't want to upset you guys. We're all here to enjoy The Witcher and have a good time, and if some people like the show, I didn't want to basically be awful and tell you guys that what you like isn't The Witcher and that it's bad or something like that. But to be honest now, I just feel like the only way for me to discuss the show in any way is to be honest. It's part of the reason I've avoided talking about it in videos, well, and the fact I just don't really like it. But anyway, there was always one glimmer of hope in the show, and that was Henry Cavil. I'll admit, when I first heard the casting, when doing my Witcher 2 playthrough all those years ago, I was pretty skeptical. But whilst almost every other character kind of sucked, I could see Henry was really trying with what he had. And as time went on, he proved that he really did care. Multiple stories came out about his frustrations with the show that I personally shared, and the showrunner's lack of care for the source material. This culminated with him departing from the show. He gave up on being on one of arguably the most popular shows in the world because he basically could see it for what it was, bad, and didn't want his name attached to it. Now he's working on a Warhammer movie, and despite not having too much personal interest in the movie, I'll definitely watch it, because I'm sure whatever that movie turns out to be, it'll be made with love and care. Honestly, the thing I can never get over with the Witcher Netflix adaptation is that I just remember the early days of the show, because I followed it as it was coming out for years and years. I had my YouTube channel years before it came out, and I was doing only The Witcher. And I remember they would always talk about, it's going to be a faithful adaptation, we only care about the books, we only blah blah blah. It was all this stuff, we care about the books, we care about the books. And I was sat there like, right, yeah, I do like when people say that, because it's good to respect the source material, but there's this thing about you should also respect the games, you know? And that's not just from like a personal love of, I mean, I do love the games, but the games are what made the books popular. The books were popular in Poland, but not worldwide. The games is what really pushed that audience, and to sort of ignore that impact and act like it doesn't matter at all, and to treat as if the show would have been made at all if especially The Witcher 3, it wasn't as popular as it was. To just ignore that was incredibly disrespectful to the fandom. That was what I always felt. The showrunner also came out with just so many promises. I mean, I talked about it before, but I just knew from that this was not going to be what I wanted it to be. And as the show has gone on, it really has come into its own in that regard. Anyway, now we have Liam Hemsworth taking over the role. I feel he doesn't really care about The Witcher, he's just taking the role because it pays well and could help his career. There have been reports about how he's now read the books, etc., and I like to imagine he'll finish the books, watch the show, and be like, what the hell happened here? But he probably won't, because I doubt it's that important to him. if his first introduction to the world was the show, honestly, I can't even imagine what his opinion of The Witcher must be. He maybe just thinks, oh, it's just like some fantasy thing, and yeah, it's a bit weird. But yeah, I'll read these books, and then I'll just be Geralt, and I'll get paid or something, you know? So, anyway, yeah, I feel most of the fans, even those that like the show, are probably pretty done with it after the main character's lead actor left. I mean, Henry is beloved by the fandom. I just can't help but thinking about how this all kind of sucks. We could have had a really good Witcher show, something that adapted in the same vein as Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. You know, there can be some changes, but the same basic story is there and the themes are present. I used to always get this comment, oh, it's an adaptation, so it will change, blah blah blah, but I think that's such a cop-out way of allowing for bad writing and bad adapting. You know, they didn't adapt the books, they just didn't. They made their own show. It's not an adaptation if you make a completely original story, you add new characters, you change characters, their entire philosophies. It's not an adaptation, it's just your own show using their names, you know, and it's not. So I get very frustrated about those sort of comments, and I guess I've just learned to ignore them. But what I'll say is that regardless of whether you think that it's faithful or not, it was a complete mess of a show in general. I haven't seen any of Blood Origin or Season 3, because Season 2 was an absolute pain for me to get through, and I just don't feel like forcing myself to watch something I know is just bad. And from what I've heard, this was a good decision, especially for whatever the hell Blood Origin was, because, god, the stuff I've heard about that is just, I don't even want to look at it. So this brings me to something that you might be curious about, which is, what do I hope will happen? Honestly, I want the show to end. I want someone who cares to buy the rights. I want a faithful adaptation that only cares about making a good show, nothing else. And there are so many ways to do it. Maybe an animated series, movies, or live action show. Do I think it will happen? No. The Witcher is too important of a brand now, and I don't see Netflix selling it. I think all we can hope for is the next Witcher game to be good and enjoy the Witcher fandom there and whatever surrounds that. And also hope that CD Projekt Red stops any further collaborations with Netflix. I did not like their collaboration with The Witcher Enhanced Edition. I just thought it was weird. I don't like the show, I don't want it involved in the games. I played the mission that they made, I thought it was pretty good, but I just didn't like the fact that it allowed The Witcher Netflix to almost become this sort of slightly canon thing to the games, which was just very uncomfortable. I know they did it because ultimately it's a business and the show was very popular, they want to add it in, but I think now they've got to understand that people do not want the show in the games, people do not like the show, and it's getting less and less popular. Stop collaborating with it, don't acknowledge it, don't feed it in any way. What's been frustrating me a lot recently, and it's the same with so many of these shows at the moment, I mean, they released, what was it, The Rings of Power, I mean, just countless other, like, recent adaptations, recent creations and stuff. I think what showrunners need to realize is, if the goal is to make money for their business, they just need to adapt the material. There's a reason the material's popular, there's a reason these themes speak to people. Adapt it, make something good, focus on just putting on screen what the author intended. That's all your job is. Your job is not to do anything else. It's not your show, it's not your creation, it's someone else's. You are adapting it. You can put your own flair in it, directively, I don't know, in a director sort of way, creatively, but don't change that story. That is what made this thing popular. If you catch lightning in a bottle, you don't just throw it at the wall and then try and catch it again and then cobble it together and do a bunch of your own random crap in there as well and maybe fill it with something. It's a weird analogy, but you get what I mean. I'm annoyed. But anyway, that's it for today's video. Let me know your thoughts on The Witcher Netflix. Do you like it? Did you like it when it first came out? How do you feel now? What's your ideal plan for it? What would you like to see happen? I'm actually curious what people actually sort of think about this show now. I don't really know anymore. I'm assuming people have realized it's bad at this point. I've been waiting for years for people to realize how awful it is and how it's basically just not The Witcher. I hope this is now the general opinion. Don't know. Curious what you guys think. If you liked today's video and want to see more, subscribe for more. Put any suggestions in the comments. I'm aiming for 3,000 subscribers or whatever we can get. so any help you can give is appreciated. And I'll see you guys later. Have a great day, and there'll be another video soon.